On behalf of the family and myself, we welcome you here today and thank you for coming. Before we get started, I'm going to ask everybody to double check their cell phones and make sure they're turned down or shut off, please. I'd appreciate that so much. Immediately following the cemetery today, there will be a luncheon at the American Legion. The family wanted me to invite all of you all there. It'll be a good time for the people that are shy to share stories, and food is a comfort. Arlo Agee Jr., 76 of Ottumwa, died at 3:46 a.m. November 13th, 2025 at Mercy One Medical Center in Des Moines. He was born February 4th, 1949 in Ottumwa to Arlo Levon and Vivian Corrine Donnell Agee Sr. Boy, there's a mouthful there, isn't there? Arlo married Judy Joyce Smith, October 20th, 1973. She preceded him in death, January 28th, 2025. A 1967 graduate of Ottumwa High School, Arlo served in the U.S. Navy. Arlo was a member of the O.B. Nelson Post No. 3 American Legion. He was an avid reader and enjoyed drag racing, hunting, and working on cars. Surviving are his children, Cliff Darla Gordon Agee of Drakesville and Sean Charlene Agee of Ankeny. 3 grandchildren, Chance Agee, Scott Agee, and Sarah Agee, and a sister, Vandana Danasi of San Francisco, California. He was preceded in death by his parents and an infant brother, Alan Avon Agee. At this time, we'll play the first song the family chose. Everybody has a story, and everybody's story should be told. I have the privilege today to share a little bit of Arlo's story. Some of the stories you may know, some of them you may not, but regardless, it's his story. He graduated from Ottumwa High School in 1967, and he loved to read, and he loved to read Louis L'Amour books. He also read a 19-book series on sci-fi and wizards. I was hoping someone was going to chuckle at that, but at one time he was a gate guard at the shack at John Deere for about 10 years. He drove a truck for Tenco. He worked at Iowa Machinery. He was a temp at the Ottumwa schools as a custodian at one time. He worked at the North American company helping people move, travel from state to state. Arlo married Judy in 1973, and they had 51 great years together. He picked up drag racing at a young age. One of the cars he'd loved to enjoy was a 1957. He also raced with a lot of his friends. Just last September, he was able to go to St. Louis and watch some drag racing. Craig and Brad Moore's dad and Arlo's dad were good friends, and they did a lot of duck hunting and goose hunting. Cliff asked his dad one day, he says, "How come you never take us kids goose hunting or duck hunting?" He goes, "Because I don't like to hunt duck or geese." He just went for the ride. He did like the pheasant hunt, deer hunting. When the dogs couldn't make it to pheasant hunting, the kids became the dogs and chased the pheasants. What a stud, huh? He liked deer hunting the most. Wished he still could later on in life. His lifelong passion, though, was being a mechanic, working on anything that had an engine. And even though he couldn't go in the garage and work anymore, he wanted to be there. Chance shared with me that he'd be in the wheelchair watching him work, and then Chance had to get where he was, so he'd push the wheelchair out of the way, and then a couple minutes later, where the wheelchair was now, he had to go move it to get something else out of there, and we'll talk about that here in just a bit. He was always willing to help people, which every one of you guys know. For years, every Saturday, they played poker, and it was dealer's choice. Those of you who know a little bit about poker, Arlo always picked a game where he didn't have to throw too many cards out there. He was plain and simple. Arlo knew a lot of people. They said even when they was out of state, they'd be at a gas station or someone holler across the parking lot, "Hey, Arlo." One time he got picked for, in the process that he might get picked for jury duty. Now, I'm not going to say the words that they told me to say, but I'll do the story justice. And didn't know if his number was going to come up. So the judge says, "Do any of you guys know him?" So Arlo raised his hand, and he says, what do you know about him?" He said, "Well, he was a yang back then, and he's probably a yang now." He got out of jury duty that time. When Arlo was younger, he got arrested, and the bailiff put him on handcuffs and took him in front of the judge. Judge looked at Arlo and said, I thought I told you I didn't want to see you anymore." He said, "That's what I told the bailiff, but he brought me anyway." A classmate of mine I seen last night at the visitation came up to me and said him and his wife moved in right across from the street from Arlo and Judy 27 years ago. And he said Arlo came over the very first day and introduced himself. And he says, "Hey, I got a big garage over there, and there may be a time you need to borrow something out of there, tools or anything." He goes, "You help yourself, just bring them back when you're done." Isn't that the good old days? And so he says, but I have two rules. He said, the first rule is turn the light on. The second rule is if you fall down and get hurt, you didn't pay attention to the first rule. When I meet with families, whether I know the family or not, when I leave, I start to ponder all the stories and try to visualize myself in parts of them stories. And one story always sticks out a little bit more than others. That don't mean it's the best one, it's just the way my brain works. And the one that stuck to me was when he couldn't work on vehicles anymore, but he wanted to be in the garage. And he was in there in the wheelchair because that was his passion. And that's what he loved to do. A really good friend of mine, Jerry Parker, was the MC at our Veterans Day program. And toward the end of the program, before I closed in prayer, he got up and spoke, and he had no idea what I was going to talk about when I got up there. And he talked about the word someday, and he said he shared it at his church a couple weeks prior. So when I got up to speak, I was going to tell people that we need more people on the military honor guard. They're starting to get older and this and that, and we need to continue that. And I said, someday, Chaplain McIntyre is not going to be around to present that flag to the next of kin. Someday, the honor guard that's on there now either can't do it no more or they're going to pass away. Someday, your Arlos of the world can't go work in the shop anymore. And that's what their passion was. It's something to ponder today. At this time, we'll play the second song that the family chose. I'd like to explain how that song came about in case you guys don't know. Once a year, Clint Eastwood and Chevy Chase, what a combination, huh? They own a golf course together. And during the week of the PGA Tour, they get a hold of all the movie stars and musicians, and they all go to there, and they golf for 3 days in a row. And what they do, they draw a number out of a hat. And Toby Keith drew Clint Eastwood one year. So the second day after golf, they was sitting there talking, and Toby Keith says to Clinton, he says, hey, he says, I hear Monday you got a special day. You're turning 90 years old. What are you going to do on your special day? He said, I'm going to film the new movie, The Mule. Some of you may have heard of it. And he looked at him, Toby Keith looked at Clint Eastwood and said, what keeps you going? And he says, I try not to let the old man in. Toby Keith went home, wrote the song in about 30 minutes, sent it back to him, and they played it at the end of the movie. I just wanted to share that with you guys. Everybody leaves a legacy, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's somewhere in between. We all leave a legacy. We often don't think about our legacy until a time like this. Every one of you guys are going to remember Arlo by one particular story, typically. But when you add all them stories together, you're like, oh my goodness, he left a legacy. The day he graduated at Ottumwa High School in 1967, Arlo was leaving a legacy. Every time he picked up a Louis L'Amour book, Arlo was leaving a legacy. Every day he went to work at all those different places, Arlo was leaving a legacy. And on October 20th of 1973, when he married Judy, Arlo was leaving a legacy. Every drag race he participated in, Arlo was leaving a legacy. Every time he would open his garage door to go work on another vehicle, Arlo was leaving a legacy. Every Saturday when they played poker, Arlo was leaving a legacy. And when he got arrested and the bailiff put him in front of the judge, and the judge says, thought I said I didn't want to see you no more. And he said, that's what I told the bailiff, but he brought me anyway. Arlo was leaving a legacy. And last but not least, when I asked Cliff and Chance at the end of our visit, what will you remember Arlo the most by? And they both said he was always willing to help anybody. And every time he did that, Arlo was leaving a legacy. This time, I'd like to read a letter written by Irma Brombeck. She wrote this shortly after her husband passed away years ago. And the title of it is, If I Had My Life to Live Over. Someone asked me the other day, if I had my life to live over, would I change anything? And my answer was no. But then I thought about it, and I changed my mind. If I had my life to live over again, I would have waxed less and listened more. Instead of wishing away 9 months of pregnancy and complaining about the shadow over my feet, I would have cherished every minute of it and realized that the wonderment growing inside me was to be my only chance in life to assist God in a miracle. I would never have insisted the car windows be rolled up on a summer day because my hair had just been teased and sprayed. I would have invited friends over to dinner, even if the carpet was stained and the sofa was faded. I would have eaten popcorn in the good living room and worried less about the dirt when you lit the fireplace. I would have taken the time to listen to my grandfather ramble about his youth. I would have burnt the pink candle that was sculptured like a rose before it melted while being stored. I would have sat cross-legged on the lawn with my children and never worried about grass stains. I would have cried and laughed less while watching television and more while watching real life. I would have shared more of the responsibility carried by my husband, which I took for granted. I would have eaten less cottage cheese and more ice cream. I would have gone to bed when I was sick instead of pretending the earth would go into a holding pattern if I weren't there for a day. I would never have bought anything just because it was practical, wouldn't show soil, guaranteed to last a lifetime. When my child kissed me, I would have never said, "Later, now go wash up for dinner." There would have been more "I love yous," more "I'm sorries," more "I'm listenings," but mostly, given another shot of life, I would seize every minute of it, look at it and really see it, try it on, live it, exhaust it, and never get that moment back until there was nothing left of it. At this time, we'll play the last song. Most of us have been to enough funerals to know that funerals aren't for the person that passed away, they're for us. I call them one of God's wake-up calls. From the time you guys heard that Arlo passed away till this moment right here, everybody here thought of God. That's what we do when someone's born and someone dies. We think of God. We also look in our mirror the last 3 or 4 days a little bit longer before we left the house. And when we ask ourselves, what is this thing called life? What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? What's that one thing in life I've never done that I wished I would have done? And if you're here today and you have that one thing you've never done and you wish you would have done it, I encourage you to do it. At least start today. Because if not, the next time you think of that one thing, you'll be sitting in a setting just like this. A good buddy of mine named Harley Ward passed away some months back, and I had the privilege of officiating his funeral. And one of the stories the family shared with me that stuck out, just like the one I had for Arlo. And the boys shared with me that when they was younger, there's 3 boys in the family. When they was younger, every night at 7 o'clock at night, the 3 boys, Harley and his wife, would take a car ride. Every night, 7 o'clock. When the kids got older and they moved out of the house and started their career or went to college, every night, Harley and his wife took a car ride at 7 o'clock every night. His wife passed away in 2019. In the last 6 years of his life, he took a car ride by himself at 7 o'clock every night. And that struck a chord with me. And I've often wondered what he thought the last 6 years. Did he go back to the very beginning? Or maybe when it was just him and his wife? The question for you need to ask yourselves today is, what chapter in the life are you in? Are you a young couple with kids? Or have your kids grown up and moved out, and it's just you and your spouse? Or is it just you? And most of you know I'd be preaching to the choir here, but the older we get, the more we think about dying. I have 2 examples of God's love in closing. If I were to ask any one of you guys, if you don't go to church, how come you don't go to church? It would be like, all they want is your money. They're a bunch of hypocrites. I know what they act like outside of church. And I can share that with you because I used to be one of them and judged all that. And then I gave my life to the Lord 22 years ago, and I started seeing light different. But in order for me to accept Jesus, I had to quit listening to man. No offense to people. Because if you write your list and you look at it tonight, there's not one thing in there about Jesus. Not one. So what we do as people, if we're not careful, we judge Jesus on man's opinion. And that's not fair. But we do it every day. Most of you have had a classmate or a family member or a coworker at one point in time in your life say something about you behind your back, and it wasn't true, and it hurt you, and it upset you. But yet, that's what we do to Jesus every day, and he still loves us. So here's 2 examples for you guys. The first one is when God created Arlo, he could have put him anywhere in the world. Listen to me. He has that kind of power. He could have put him anywhere in the world. And God chose Ottumwa, Iowa for you. Isn't that cool? Look at all the people that never got to meet Arlo. God gave him to you guys. Second example, and then we'll close. I was watching a show or on the radio or something here a while back, and an NFL draft was getting ready to start. And this one particular head coach really wanted this player coming out of college that was a stud. And that stud college player really wanted to play on this NFL team. So the head coach called him and said, hey, the draft's getting ready to start here in a couple of days. In order for me to get you, I have to trade somebody because of the salary cap, but I'm going to do the best I can. Well, the draft came up, and he ended up getting that guy, and he traded the other guy. But the news media never talks about the guy that got traded. And that guy's had a family to feed, I'm sure, bills to pay. So then it dawned on me, and I thought, the moment God created each one of you guys, the moment you took your first breath, you became one of God's number one draft choices. Think about that for a bit. And he will never trade you. Man will trade you every time, but he'll never trade you. To the family, I want to thank you for this opportunity. It was truly my honor, and I am truly humbled. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, Lord. You know why we're all here. I ask you to touch the family, Lord. Continue to help them heal. Share all the good memories so his story never dies. I pray for the rest of the friends here and family that are mourning as well in their own way. But I ask for protection as we leave here and go to Shaw Cemetery, Lord, and I pray that when they go to the Legion here in a bit to have a luncheon and talk, Lord, that it's nothing but all good stories, and that each one of us can leave here today and take a little bit of Arlo and make our world a better place. We'll thank you for it in your powerful name. Amen.